All right, what is up, my friends? Welcome to the conclusion of our complete set review for Dungeons & Dragons Adventures of the Forgotten Realm, the crossover set. We do limited, we do constructed, we do every single card. And anything you missed is on the YouTubes, folks, all right? White, blue, black, red, green, multicolored, and regular colorless cards, which will include the artifacts and the lands. Full set review. I want to remind everyone, follow me on coolstuffinc.com, check out my articles. I do 10 New Brews, my 10 New Brews articles up. All the brews are on YouTube. Someone's donating money, and I can't even see what it is. I appreciate that.
Pump to play with new cards.
And I'm casting Stream League tomorrow. Cool stuff videos. More content you can shake a stick at. All right? So don't shake your stick at me. Okay? Colorless cards. Let's go. With Bag of Holding, a reprint. A reprint. Yes, this card was in like one of the core sets. And sounded like a D&D card. Well, here it is. Now it's in a D&D set. 1 mana artifact. Let me discard a card, exile it from your graveyard, pay 2 to loot, pay 4 to sacrifice Bag of Holding, and you get all the cards you discarded back. It's kind of a cool card draw engine, but it's funny because I'd almost prefer this card if it didn't exile the cards. If it was just a 1 mana artifact that paid 2 to loot, I think I would like that card better. Because you actively often want to get cards into your graveyard, you know? And this card can't do that. It's just a slow card draw engine. So, not super thrilled about it. It's okay. Realistically, you will eventually draw some cards off of it after putting a bunch of mana into it. But overall, not that exciting. Again, I would kind of wish it just didn't have that second line of text and just a looter. But whatever. And then in limited, sure. If your deck is slow, you can use this card to draw some cards. Not overly exciting though. Nothing new here. We've seen this card before. Up next is the Deck of Many Things. Again, I don't play D&D, so I have no point of reference here. But 5 mana legendary artifact. Pay 2, roll a d20, and subtract the number of cards in your hand. If the result is 0 or less, discard your hand. Okay. 1 to 9, return a card at random from your graveyard to your hand. Okay. 10 to 19, draw 2 cards. It's pretty good. 20, put a creature card from any graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. When that creature dies, its owner loses the game. So, like, you can steal their creature and then kill it and then win the game. But I think building your deck around, as much as building your deck around a Planeswalker Ultimate isn't a good idea, building your deck around a 5 mana legendary artifact rolling a natural 20 is probably even worse idea. So, yeah, we'll table that one for now. So this is sort of like a way to just draw more cards or return cards to your graveyard. This is basically just a very slow card advantage engine. 5 mana and then 2 mana is a lot. So 7 mana overall, just to possibly draw a card or two. I'm not really about this card at all. Yeah, this card could cost a lot less mana, I think. Not really about it. You're playing limited and your deck is really, really slow. Maybe, but for the most part, you're just going to be returning a card at random from your graveyard, and that's not very good. So, kind of miss for me, not super great. Up next is Dungeon Map. 2 mana for a mana rock, pay 3 and venture. Great limited card. 3 mana rock isn't good, but it's fine. And the ability to venture over and over and over again is super awesome. Great draft card. Constructed, probably not. Probably a little too slow for constructed. But in League Unlimited, this card's freaking awesome. Really, really cool. Obviously, you're going to want this in your venture deck. You're not just going to play this in your red aggro deck for no reason. But if you're, one of the blue, white, black venture decks, somewhere in that range, you want to venture often, this card does that pretty well. I like it a lot. Solid draft card for the decks that want it. Up next is the Eye of Vecna. And it's some creepy ass stuff going on over there. 2 mana for a legendary artifact. Comes into play, draw a card, and lose 2 life. It's kind of a tilt. Beginning of your upkeep, you may pay 2. If you do, draw a card and lose 2 life. So basically the worst Maze Mind Tome of all time. You can keep doing it over and over again, obviously. This card is a painful, slow card draw engine. It's going to be pretty bad against any deck that's attacking you. The fact that you get a card immediately is kind of cool. So you do get a mana discount on your first card. But 2 life every activation is tough. What makes Maze Mind Tome good is that it draws, or it gains 4 life as well. That's not, that's because you want the buffer, because if you're wasting your time spending mana to draw cards, you want that buffer to keep you alive, and this just freaking kills you. So not really big with this card. There are like combos of this and the two other cards, but overall, I think this card's pretty unimpressive. There's like the black artifact where if you lose 2 life, make a zombie, and then there's like some other equipment or whatever. But all in all, this is like a lot of things happening that aren't very good, I don't think. So not very excited about this. In limited, it's fine because you can just like play it, cycle it, and then if you need it, draw cards later. But all in all, not very exciting. Up next is 50 Feet of Rope. 1 mana for an artifact. You can tap it so a wall can't block. There aren't many walls in this set, so not super great. You can spend 3 to tap it, and a creature won't untap next turn. It's like sort of like a bad icy. You can spend 4 and venture into a dungeon. This card is, I think, passable if you need a mana sink, but it seems very, very expensive. And I just don't think you have time to activate this until later in the game. I'm not super excited about this card, honestly. I think it's a little too clunky for what it does. If the tie-up ability was a tap ability rather than a keep it tapped ability, I'm much more interested in it, I think, as like a bad icy. But overall, I think this card is the kind of card where it's very good in sealed, because sealed's usually a slow format. But I think that if your deck has things to do, basically most things to do are better than putting mana into this. So if your deck's slow and defensive and needs a mana sink, sure, but otherwise I'm not very excited about this card. Not very excited. Up next is Great Axe. 1 mana for an equipment, +4/+0, equip for 5. So this card's obviously super cute with the Boros equipment cards, which are equip for free or equip for cheap, but otherwise very expensive. It's cool with Fervent Champion, I guess, but not very good. Not very good. Equip 5 is like a heinous amount of mana to equip for. Hand of Vecna. Sure, so this is the other card of the part of the Exodia. 3 mana for an equipment. Beginning of combat on your turn. Equip creature or creature you control named Vecna gets +X/+X on a turn. Where X is the number of cards in your hand. You can pay 1 life to equip it or pay 2 to equip it. This card is definitely fine and limited because it's sort of like Imperial Plate. You can play it for 3, pay 1 life to equip it, or pay some amount of life to equip it, and then do its thing. It is very cool with Vault Scourge, that is true, but it's very, very cool. So the power level here is reasonable, but Imperial Plate was never like a constructed powerhouse or anything like that. So all in all, I'm not really pumped about this card too much. The fact that it is 3 mana to equip and play is pretty cool. So yeah, you put it on a Seasoned Hollowblade, put it on a Lifelinker. These are all things you can do that are reasonable. But the thing is, your hand also needs to be a decent size. And, and if it's not a decent size, and you're kind of like, and then your aggro deck's gonna empty your hand pretty quick, so it just gets awkward. So not super big on this one. Definitely a fine draft card, but not super excited. Up next is Iron Golem. 4 mana for a 5/3 Vigilance. Must attack or block each combat if Aegles. So sort of like a Juggernaut kind of card. Old Jugs. Jugs was good back in the day, but it is 2021, so not super thrilled about this one. Solid draft card for sure. The body's fine. Plays well with the pack attack, whatever cards. Probably more of an aggro card than anything else, but should outsize most things. Just a solid draft card, I think. It's fine. Up next is Leather Armor. 1 mana for an equipment. Creature gets +1/+0 and ward 1 and equips for 0. Just not good enough. I mean, this is the kind of card where, like, if you have a bunch of things that want you to equip stuff and trigger off that, it's a good enabler. But it doesn't really do enough. I like that it's cheap, because I like cards that are cheap. But +1/+0 and ward 1 is not super exciting. It is pretty good on the 3/1. There's a common white 3/1 that gets +0/+2 if it's equipped. So that plus this is a pretty cheap 3/4 with ward, which is kind of cool. But overall, not super excited about it, honestly. Just kind of like, okay. And they made sure to make the equip cost 0, but you can only do it once a turn, because there were combos back in the day with the card Shuko. Shuko is 1 mana for an equipment, +1/+0, equip for 0, and you can equip the same creature over and over again a million times and trigger target effects and then combo that way. So they made sure to make that not a possibility. Up next is Mimic. And this is a chest that's not a chest. 2 mana for a treasure. And then it's also, you can pay 2 and make it a creature if it's a 3/3. Unfortunately, Lotus Petal is not worth 2 mana, so that part's not very good. And then the 3/3 part's also not great either. It is a treasure, which is kind of cool, so you can use it for your synergy stuff in your black-red treasure decks, which is kind of cool, but doesn't really feel like it's worth a card, honestly. It's kind of like a 4 mana 3/3, but you got to keep putting mana into it, which is a little awkward too. So a cute card, not a very exciting card. Kind of cool pack tactics, sure, that's reasonable. But yeah, overall, I'm not super thrilled with this card. It's cute. What's up, Doug? Could be a goblin, it's true. Spare Dagger is next. 1 mana equipment. There's so many equipment in this set. 1 mana equipment. Equipped creature gets +++. As whenever this creature attacks, you may sacrifice the dagger. If you do, it deals 1 to any target. This card is pretty solid, actually. +++ for an equipment isn't that bad. And then the fact that this can just like be a ping, 1 damage anywhere to kill random X1s or things like that's kind of cool. Again, though, the power level is reasonably low, and it feels like a card that, again, if you have equipment synergies, I keep saying this over and over again, it's reasonable. But on power level, it's not great. But if your opponent has a lot of X1s, it's pretty good. It's cheap enough to be reasonable. It's just an okay limited card. I'm not super enthused about it. Spiked Pit Trap.
It's a trap.
I'm abusing my Akbar button. Yeah, so 1 mana flash, 5 damage to kill a creature. This is your pretty typical, very expensive limited removal spell. You typically don't want this card in your deck, but it is, if your deck is desperate for removal, it's okay. That's all there really is to it. Nothing really fancy here. The role feels almost irrelevant, in that the treasure is like whatever. So it's just a very clunky removal spell for your like blue-white deck that can't kill things. Up next is Treasure Chest, a 3 mana artifact. Pay 4, sacrifice the chest, roll a d20. If you roll a 1, you're trapped. You lose 3 life. And I gotta tell you, if I spend 7 mana on this freaking card to roll a 1 and lose 3 life, I am gonna be really, really mad. Really mad. So 2 through 9 make 5 treasures, which doesn't even get you back all the money you spent on it. 10 through 19 gain 3 life and draw 3 cards. That one's pretty good, but not really worth 7 mana, realistically. And then if you roll a nat 20, you search your library for a card. If it's an artifact card, put it in the battlefield. Otherwise, put it in your hand and then shuffle. I think this card is specifically really bad because they were very, very careful to make sure that the D20 cards were not going to be major players in Constructed. Because this card feels overcosted by about 2. I guess maybe, yeah, I would say 2. Maybe 1. I think for 6 mana, we draw 3 and gain 3. That's fine. But, like, you don't know what you're getting. What you get might not even be good. And then, like, it's just not, you can't spend 7 mana on an effect like this and not know what you're going to get, So, it's obviously cute. I think it's intentionally powered down because they don't want dice rolling to be a major part of things. It's funny, I guess. It's cute, but not really a useful card. And then in limited, you're gonna have a lot of fun telling bad beat stories with this card. Lots of complaint equity. Man, I was winning. I was at 3 life, and I rolled a 1, and whatever kind of stuff, So sure, cute, but whatever. Moving on to the lands, we have a new cycle of creature lands, and they're pretty good, honestly. They are pretty good. This is my pick for perhaps the best one, Cave of the Frost Dragon. Honestly, I mean, we're giving best in show to all the creature lands. There isn't really one in particular that I'm like super pumped about. I like Cave of the Frost Dragon a lot because the white decks want to have that evasive flyer if they're flooding. That's really cool. So the 3/4 flying dragon's really good. I think Cave is probably the best one, if not one of the best ones. I also think Den of the Bugbear is also very good. Makes a 3/2 and a 1/1. So if you have any sort of like, power homing effects, things like that, That's really good. Also, red decks just want to have this. Like, you're much happier if the top of your curve in your red deck is this and not a 5-drop, because this card is good on turn 1 and good on turn 6 if you're flooding. So, super low opportunity cost, comes in untapped a lot. I like these lands a lot. I love lands that come in untapped, and these succeed in that perfectly. So, like the Den a lot. Hold on. Take this off the screen. What the hell is this? I thought freaking Base Camp was bad. Dungeon Descent. Land. Enters the battlefield tapped. Taps for only colorless. Tap 4 mana. And an untapped legendary creature you control. And you do all this. And what do you get? To venture only once. And, as if that wasn't enough, you can only do it at sorcery speed. Now, I get it. I understand this card, the standpoint of wanting this card to not be too good. Because if this was an unfettered, say it was just the card as it is, comes in tapped, taps for a colorless, pay 4 to venture, and then there was no legendary restriction or creature restriction or sorcery restriction. A control deck could just like end step this every turn and win the game off it by itself. That you can't have that. That's way too good. Totally agree with that. But they put so many safeguards on this card. It feels like an actual dungeon. Like a dungeon you don't want to go in at that. There are so many hoops to jump through here. It's just unbelievable. If you take off 1 or 2 of the hoops here, I think this card's actually actively pretty good. But as printed, it's just too much. It's just too much. And don't get me wrong, I think that venturing is very, very good. I think that if you're able to venture repeatedly over and over again, that is really, really powerful. But it's just too much. This is just too much. I can't even do it. I can't even do it. I'm going to move on. Although, I will say that if you have like 2 or 3 legends in your deck in limited, this card's actually pretty good. Because of how good venturing is over and over again and how low the opportunity cost is. A tap land limit is whatever, you know. So this card is not the worst land ever printed. All right. That's not true. But the effect here is reasonable if you can do it. So limited, if you got some legends, this card's definitely playable for sure. I would venture to say it's actually actively good and limited if you have multiple legends because the opportunity cost is so low. But in constructed, oh my god, we can't do this. We cannot do this. All right, we're gonna move on. Evolving Wilds is in every set ever. I'm not talking about it. Hall of Storm Giants, definitely super cool. Put the best in show back up on the screen for the creature lands. This one feels pretty good in that it's a win condition for a control deck. It's kind of cool. Also, if you're like a blue-green ramp deck, it's kind of cool. Although, at the same time, it's going to come in tapped a lot more often than the other ones are. So it's a little bit of give, a little bit of take. At the same time, the payoff is super high. A 7/7 is huge. Ward is huge. It blocks really well. I like this one. Hive of the Eye Tyrant's also pretty cool. The body itself isn't great, but being able to get the sort of main deck graveyard hate kind of for free is really awesome. A 3/3 is like a decent size, but not great. But, you know, they have some important card in their graveyard. You have the opportunity to kind of just be like, okay, pop it up and nix that card. That's pretty cool. So solid one there. And then the green one's also very good too. It has Menace? Oh, that's Menace too. Oh, wow. I didn't realize that. This is better than I thought. That one's good. And then the green one's also quite good. You know, green decks are prone to flooding and being able to you know, pump. You got 6 lands in play, you're flooded, pump it all in, attack for 4. That's pretty cool too. So I think all the creature lands are quite good. Definitely a shared best in show for all of them. They're going to be major players in standard until they leave, honestly, and then possibly even in historic. As far back as historic, maybe Pioneer too, but if Pioneer even exists anymore. But they're all very, very good. Temple of the Dragon Queen. Similar in a sense to the dungeon land, where like there's so much text on it, and what you get is an untapped land for 1 color. It's very playable. You know, it's definitely it's like an evolving wilds kind of card that can have upside. You know, if you're playing dragons, this card's super awesome. But I wish it was a little more exciting. But you know, you basically just need to reveal a dragon, and it comes in untapped, and then you choose the color you want. So it's evolving wilds, but comes in untapped sometimes. That's pretty cool. And then treasure vault, we have an artifact land in standard. Emery is legal too. You know, we played this card in 10 new brews. Sacrifice to make some treasures. I'm not sure why you need to spend a bunch of mana to make treasures, but if you need artifacts or synergy stuff for treasures, it's kind of cool. This is mostly good because it's an artifact land. The rest of it's kind of like, okay, sure, kind of thing. But kind of a cool card. Kind of a cool card. But that's it. That's the whole freaking set. We did it. We made it to the end. All in all, I think the set is a lot of flavor wins. I think the set is better than it looks. People in chat are kind of like, set's bad. This set's like Homelands, blah, 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 blah. Standard needs the power down, all right? And unfortunately, the power down process can be a little frustrating at times because you like look at these cards and you're like, this can't beat Bone Crusher Giant. This can't beat, you know, Lovestruck Beast. But powering down is good because once those cards rotate, it was similar to Strixhaven where the cards felt a bit powered down. Once all the cards are powered down, you probably have a really good format. You know, which is great. So I must say when I went to build my decks for 10 new brews, which you should all watch by the way, I felt unenthused going into the deck build. But once I had finished all 10 decks, I was like, wow, these all 10 of these decks are pretty freaking cool, honestly. I like this a lot. So I think this is the kind of set where it's gonna look a lot better than it actually seems. And there's a lot of cool stuff happening. It's not necessarily mind-blowingly powerful, but there's a lot of cool themes happening that can be fleshed out. The artifact stuff is cool. I think it's pretty cool. And then obviously the flavor stuff's cool too. I don't play D&D, but there's tons of folks who play D&D and are very hyped about this set also, which is pretty cool too. So it's cool. Yeah, more synergy. The last few sets have been more synergy cool stuff and less Oko, Uro, Teferi Time Raveler, blah, you're dead. You know, so that's a good thing in my opinion. That's a good thing. All right, so that's all set review. YouTube folks, I love you. Like, comment, subscribe. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know how wrong or right I am about cards and the set in general. I want to hear your thoughts. Your comment of the day is Igor. All capital letter Igor for Igor the Hammy, who's sleeping now, obviously, because he's done with your shit. Igor, so I'll know you made it to the end of the set review. All right, by typing Igor, I'll know you made it to the end, and I appreciate that very, very much. YouTube folks, like, comment, subscribe. $5 membership, join that up. Join the Discord. You're all freaking great, and you're all good. I love you. Thanks, YouTube. Appreciate it. 10 new brews. Go watch that.